Professor Yeo. I hate to end this presentation. No, yes, done a lot of work. But now, for the interest of time, he said our time is up. But since this problem is so important, may I ask you to stay for half an hour more so that we can open the floor for discussion, okay? And then let's target at ending our forum at around 5, okay? So may I ask the speakers to come forward, okay? So now the floor is open for discussion. If you have any question you would like to raise, I'm sure that the speakers will entertain your questions. Okay? Okay.
First, I'd like to thank you all for your insights and opinion. And I have a question targeted more towards Mr. David O'Rear and Lee Kam about education in Hong Kong. Mr. David O'Rear, you mentioned towards the beginning of your presentation that the money being put into education in Hong Kong isn't really rendering the results the city needs. So my question is, how does this with the growing number of cross-border students in Hong Kong, so mainlanders coming to Hong Kong for education, well, that is set to almost quadruple by 2017. So my question is, how do they factor into the greater sort of theme or problem of growth, education, and development in Hong Kong?
Thank you very much. I guess I think of it more as, rather than what Hong Kong needs to do to generate people to work in Hong Kong, is what do we need to do in order to be able to draw in a larger pool? If I'm working in New York City, Lower Manhattan, as I mentioned, and I can't find somebody from NYU, I'll call up Harvard, I'll call up Berkeley, I'll call up Stanford, wherever I can. I'll call University of Hong Kong or Chinese U and find that person. I won't insist they have to be from New York City. So that's, I think, the first point. The second point is that we are a very, very focused economy. We have something like half of everything we do, 2/3 is trade. That doesn't require a tremendous amount of education, but it does require some understanding of markets and opportunities and entrepreneurship. We also have finance, which is the same worldwide. You're going to need the same worldwide pool of talent to do it well. And then we have professional services, like people keep microphones working. Afraid that one's gone. Professional services, lawyers and doctors and accountants and so forth, and we will continue to have this concentration of top quality talent. Thank you. Of top quality talent in the city in order to be a business and financial center, and it's one of the things that makes it work so well. The challenge is, what do we do with people who are not going to be part of that? We outsource golf to Zhuhai, gambling to Macau. We go to lunch in Shenzhen. Beijing takes care of our foreign affairs and defense. If you can't do it here, we outsource it. What can we not outsource? Plumbing. We need great plumbers because we got a lot of pipes. We're very, very vertical, and we need to be able to have that fixed quickly. We need electricians. Car repairmen, no, we'll ship them up to Shenzhen within a few years. Dry cleaning, nope, goes across the border. So we need to focus the talents of the people who are not going to go to university, who are not going to be actually part of the cutting edge business opportunity in the city. We need to focus their training on the things that cannot be outsourced. I hope that has some answer to some part of your question.
Well, since I was asked about the question, Well, I think maybe this is the luxury of being, in the ivory tower, that you can actually dream bigger. That you don't really need to just focusing on the labor force that we need and think about training our younger generations. I think universities should train students to be problem solvers, to be dreamers, to be more visionary, to be very versatile, and also to think out of the box and think about, gainfully engage yourself in activities that not just, help you to make money, but actually make your life better, more meaningful. So I don't have the crystal ball to say, what you can do in the future. But I don't think you need to confine yourself to conform to whatever jobs that are available, and then just try to do that. But I think if we really pursue this more multi-dimensional way of thinking and seeing problems in its complexities, I think and if we have the help and the partnership of the government and the community working together, and hopefully with the private sector as well, I guess we can do things more interesting. I mean, look, even in New York, in Los Angeles or whatever, they tap into talents from every part of the world, and that's why they could, be so successful. So personally, I like to see more students coming from the mainland. I think that would be good for our students, open up their mind, horizon, and improve, this interflow. But I think the problem with what I can see is that now I engage myself more into undergraduate training, is that we have not trained our students to be more open-minded enough. I think the education has been not allowing them to see a broader horizon, and on the contrary, it's always confining them. I see students who are brilliant researchers, but very hesitant to go into further studies, simply because they just want to follow the mainstream. I don't know what that mainstream is, and get a job and be, have a comfortable life. So I don't know. I don't have a solid answer. Sorry, Rebecca, but I think, to be university students and to be in a university, you should think bigger, and know and be hopeful that you will have a lot of opportunities ahead of you.
Can I add just one more point? Sure. Every university student in Hong Kong is going to spend their entire careers dealing with people from different cultures. Limiting that opportunity by having 10 or 20% cap on the number of the share of non-local students is insane.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Thanks. It seems that I don't know probably I don't know which person I should address this question to, but for its general impression by your talks, it seems that it's a basic assumption of all your talks is that we are going to need a lot of labor, and our economy will probably have a lot of space to grow. But is there any danger, or is there any another scenario? Say, for example, we compare a lot with New York City, other good cities, but if we compare with, for example, Detroit. Detroit does not have any pressure on the population. As you said, is that if the population shrank substantially, now it's only 1/3 probably from peak time. Hong Kong is also very much relying on one industry or two industries. Detroit relying on one industry, and the industry collapsed and the population collapsed. But Hong Kong is probably similar. Probably we're relying very much on two industries. As you said, it's very restricted economy structure. And is that if we design our population policy, for example, in the future, consider this kind of scenario, are we going to design a very different population policy, or how can we deal with that kind of scenario? That kind of scenario may come true. Just a thought.
Who would like to have a question?
In drafting our consultation document, we have go through the thinking process, whether we want to put our emphasis on quantity or quality on the labor force. This deals with the labor force, and also with, I think it's also very important to broaden our economic base. Because before this meeting, I have a brief chat with other speakers. For many years, we have talked about economic restructuring in Hong Kong for many years. But to me, economic restructuring in Hong Kong is not very successful. I'm not sure whether you have heard about Hong Kong has 4 pillar industries: tourism, professional services, trading and logistics. Finance, yes. Okay. Yesterday I looked at the share of our GDP. In 2011, the 4 industries make up about 60% of our GDP. These are our traditional strengths. We have been talking about economic restructuring, but up till now, we are still very much reliant on these 4 traditional industries. And for the last term government, had talked about 6 selected new industries back in 2008. And then I tried to look at the share of these 6 new industries in GDP. In 2008, they are about 7%. And in 2011, there's a rise, but a very small rise. It's only about 8%. So you can see, we have been talking about economic restructuring. We have been talking about moving up the value-added ladder. But so far, we have not been very much successful. But that does not mean that we just drop this idea and do not have to deal with our economic-based issue. We still have to look at it, maybe focusing on our strength and to see whether we can increase our productivity on these traditional areas. So if we can really move up our value-added ladder, we may not need as much labor as we have. We may need to have developed some labor-intensive industry, because realistically, if we want to increase our working population, there may be 2 major sources. One is our younger generation, more babies. But to me, I don't think the fertility rate in Hong Kong will increase very substantially. It will remain at a 1.2, 1.3 level. Another source is importation of labor from outside. But given our various constraints in Hong Kong, land, infrastructure, and the perception of local people towards talents from outside, towards workers from outside, politically, we may not be able to import a large number than what we are having now. So, although the path to economic restructuring may be very difficult, I think government still need to think seriously how we can make economic restructuring more successful in Hong Kong. Traditionally, we have been promoting new industries through giving out land, free land, or money. Whether there are any other ways we can do it more effectively, we have to look at this problem.
Any supplement from Carol? I think one of the problems in Hong Kong is the money comes too easily, because the government doesn't really work very hard. They still can have the surplus income, and also it will discourage the business people really invest on this long-term investment. I think this is one of the failure of our success. I think we always say, when they say long-term investment, they talk about 3 years. That's what they call the long term. I mean, the short term, they expect you to make quick bucks, in 1 month's time. I mean, that's sort of time scale we're talking about. So I think we feel very sad. I think the Hong Kong, the young people too, they do not want to invest on something which is a bit longer. So that's why they have the job hopping, and then you do not stay in the job for a long time. So I think that is one of the risks. But at the same time, I think Hong Kong is different from Detroit. Of course, we have a better weather. I mean, we are not in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we are close to China. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities here. So I think what I hope, is the government can really take the lead to invest in some industry who might take more time to have the return. But this capacity building is very important. I think this is a capacity which keep Hong Kong going, not just the tourists. I mean, if you work on the tourist itself, we should work on to provide a quality service, not just try to win the quick bucks. I mean, from these innocent and very people.
Any more comments from the panel? Okay.
Just one word. Indeed, Singapore government invests 2.4% of GDP on R&D, research and development, but Hong Kong 0.7%. So, right, this is less than that, right? So this is probably one of the reasons why we cannot, right, improve our productivity.
I first came to Hong Kong, and I've been here for 30 years. There was 25% of the manufacturing employment was in manufacturing, and about 23% of GDP. In other words, a larger share of employment than the actual contribution, which means it was a low value-added enterprise. Singapore still is in that old manufacturing kind of mindset. We've moved on beyond manufacturing. We're now down to about 2%, less than 2%, both employment and share of GDP. So we've reinvented ourselves. Now that time, 30 years ago, was the tail end of a very strange 30-year period from 1949 to 1979, when China was not the center of attention. We only have one industry here, China. That's why the city was founded. That's why everything happens, is because of China. So we have to live with that. It's our one thing we do. It's like New Orleans has the river, the bayou, that's what they do. What we did in the past was trade and then invest. And now it's finance. We've put $500 billion US of direct investment in China over 35 years. And then we raised another $500 billion US on the stock market for IPOs. That's what we do. What we need to do in the future is figure out how to move that money back out into the world, and that means developing expertise on how do you make an investment in Argentina, or Kenya, or South Africa, because that's what China wants. They want expertise that they can trust, that speak their own language, that they have maybe a little bit of grip on, that's not going to get away from them and cheat them out of things, because they can come back and say, no, that's wrong. And they want us to show them how to invest their money in the rest of the world. We need to develop that expertise.
Yeah, Dr. Oh.
Yeah, two questions to Ms. Doris Ho. One is about local talent. I always wonder what is the visions that the Hong Kong government have on education. So for example, we now talk about enhance our education and training. We also realize that associate degree is not actually well received in society, but it seems that nothing significant has happened in the education sectors, especially higher education sectors, over the last decades. Now, what is the given visions of the government have on education? What are you going to do to enhance the education? For example, would you like to further expand the higher education sectors, public higher education sectors, or you would allow the private sectors to invest more in private higher education sectors? Now, that is the first question. Now, the second one is about foreign talents. Now, we talk about you talk about the target-oriented approach to attract foreign talents, and you give examples of Singapore's and Australia's. Now, as far as I know, now in the case of Singapore, when they talk about target-oriented approach to attract foreign talents, they not only considers the specific skills or professions that they need, but I think they also focus specifically on certain geographical regions, countries. Like, for example, they focus mainly on China, India, and also the Chinese communities in Southeast Asia. Now, back to Hong Kong. Now, when we talk about target-oriented, are we still only focus on skills, professions, specific skills, or we also you also have new strategies to focus on specific regions or countries? Now, nowadays it looks like we focus mainly on talents from mainland China. Now, that's fine, I have no problem with that, but apart from that, any other new strategies or focus to specifically target talents from overseas?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ho, would you like to take the first shot?
The government's vision for education. I think we are facing some kind of dilemma here. On one hand, we heard employers complain about graduates nowadays not having the employable skills. The employability of the graduates seems to be a concern. But on the other hand, we also share Professor's views that university graduates nowadays, we should train young people nowadays to be mentally more flexible and more adaptable. They should be more versatile, because in future years, I think young people would, unlike me, after graduation, I joined the government. I never have the experience of other jobs. But for young people in future, I think they may have several careers during their lifetime. So they should learn to be more flexible and more adaptable. So this will help them, this will equip them with the skill set that they may need to grow and to develop in the future world. You asked me whether it's government's plan to expand the publicly funded higher education sector. I think if you have a look at the policy address of this year, the government is, for the time being, quite hesitant to expand the subsidized higher education opportunities, because from the figures, we can see that the current decline in student population, which is happening in the secondary school, is going to spread to the post-secondary sector. So for the time being, I think if you take into account those education opportunities in private U and UGC-funded U, as well as those who are going abroad for university education, the university participation rate of young people nowadays is about 30%. We expect this figure will rise very quickly in the next few years. So for the time being, I think we do not have any plan to expand the subsidized higher education places, but we would like to see competition. So I think also a government would also like to see more private universities, not just those organized by local educational bodies. We also want to attract overseas education bodies to open private universities in Hong Kong. Although it may be a disappointment to those about the Queen's Hill site. But we know some private universities are very keen to set up their base in Hong Kong, and the government is trying to do something to help them so that they can set up their own universities in Hong Kong. And for your second question, our targeted approach. By targeted, I think we have two levels of meaning. Once again, Hong Kong is constrained by land infrastructure. We are very mindful that if we want to attract talents, there can't be no cap. There has to be a limit. So if we want to attract top talents, we need to be more targeted. We need to attract those who can really help Hong Kong's future development. That's point one. The second point is we know for most of the talents who are working in Hong Kong, maybe quite a large number of them are coming from the mainland. We also see the merits of diversifying our foreign talent pool. So there have been suggestions that whether we can broaden our search for potential talents to other countries in Asia, such as Singapore, India. And for the skills shortage list, we are suggesting whether we can specify the skills that are in great demand in Hong Kong, that we expect to be in great demand in Hong Kong. For example, if we want to develop our creative industries, whether we can attract more designers with those skill sets to Hong Kong. So the skills shortage list will list out the skills that we think would be of great help in promoting Hong Kong's development.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Professor Morafa.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I can actually do without this. My question. Thank you very much for the wonderful speeches and a lot of data, which was very useful. My question is slightly following what he indicated. Mine is about entrepreneurship. So if we are trying to diversify job opportunities, I think one of the things that the government should be able to look at, and it's been done, now, but I think we have to scale it up, is the entrepreneurship. Because in terms of aging society, you've got some skills, like plumbing, carpentry, and so on, that those who are in it are actually aging. And so there is the need to look at how to support entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship can be at the high level and at the low end level. So what incentives are being provided for people who are promoting entrepreneurship? And that can be private sector and that can be public sector. That's one. Number two is on education, and I'm not sure who is probably going to respond to this. I was once a PTA chairman of one of those schools, that are basically English schools. And I noticed at that time that most of the parents who were coming, quite a lot of them were returnees. And so the language was actually the main issue in trying to get schools, for kids. And I can see that in a bilingual or multilingual city like Hong Kong, language can basically be, very important. I mean, it doesn't matter if it is mother tongue, French, Mandarin, English, but I think languages should be a key in terms of setting kids, on the platform. So is it a government policy, to specifically maintain the English schools, ESF, and others, or is there a way of basically bringing out local schools that are EMIs, that is English medium of instructions, so that returnees, new employees, parents with alternatives can basically go to such schools? If I had the opportunity, I would have liked to go to that school rather than going to English schools foundations. That's the question.
Okay, thank you. Would the other panel members like to reply first before Ms. Ho has to do it again. No? Okay, Michelle.
Thank you for your question. I think you have highlighted an area which should receive more attention from the government. For the existing talent admission schemes, I don't think we have any emphasis on attracting entrepreneurs to Hong Kong. We have one scheme just to attract investors. Those you can have a lot of money to invest in our Hong Kong assets. You can come to Hong Kong, yeah. But this scheme has attracted some criticism because some people saying that we should devise a new scheme that can help Hong Kong attract entrepreneurs because it can promote the entrepreneurship in Hong Kong community. On the other hand, it can also promote job opportunities in Hong Kong. Yeah, that's one of the areas that we would look into in the context of population policy. On your point of education, I know education is very important to foreign talents. It's one of the key factors that may be considered by foreign talents whether they would like to move their family to Hong Kong. For at present, we are short of school places in international school. I have heard some foreign talents saying that one of the problems is there are too many local students in our international school. Yeah, local students. I mean, Hong Kong people.
But that should not be a problem.
But we do not have enough international school places. Yeah, that would become a problem. Some has suggested whether we should impose a cap on the number of local students that can be admitted in the international school. But I don't think this is going to be a non-starter. So our policy, our strategy is to increase, to build more international schools, to increase the supply. On your question whether we can let the kids of foreign talents to study in the local school, I think we need to look at, because the medium of instruction is a issue. Yeah, so it's a good idea. Yeah, but we need to see how to put in place the necessary supportive measures.
Okay. Now, as what I've
Can I just add one point?
Yes,
on
briefly.
entrepreneurship, actually, Germany, when Germany became one, that's West Germany and East Germany, one of the things they paid more attention on was entrepreneurship. And they were bringing from outside, and they were also developing from inside, so that to cope with the influx of people from the eastern part of Germany. That was in the early 90s.
Thank you. As what I have suggested, I would like to round up our discussion at about 5. Before we end, is there any one last burning question? Okay, a burning question from Professor Shen.
I have a question I ask Mr. Ollier. One is about the foreign professionals and working in Hong Kong. So I see the data showing us that in the past maybe 5 or 10 years, numbers almost always about 60, 70,000 a year. So this meaning that each year we're only adding maybe a few thousand only for these people. So I mean the number is very small. So in terms of increasing these people working in Hong Kong, rather than the stock about 70,000. So I mean, one reason why we couldn't expand, because you don't need them, or because they don't come into Hong Kong. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ori.
I think what we're probably seeing is turnover. Somebody will come here and stay for 5 or 10 or like me, 30 years, and then when I leave, somebody else step in, and so you don't see a steady increase in the numbers. We have what we need. It's not difficult to hire people with masters or PhDs to come work in Hong Kong. The government will approve, the immigration department will approve it almost without a question. So we are almost certainly at the natural rate for those kinds of people. Immigration schemes, though, Hong Kong is a capital center. we provide money. We don't need money. It's the last thing we need. We have too much money. So to have a scheme that's based on how much money can you bring to us is a little nutty. What it should be is how much money can you take away? How much can you take $100 billion away from China's reserves and productively use it somewhere else in the world that makes everybody happy? That's what we should be encouraging.
Okay, no more comments from the panel. Okay, so it's apparent that population policy cannot be a standalone policy. It has to be formulated in synchrony with other policies, such as education policy, economic policy, housing and land policies. Okay, so I think this afternoon we have generated enough food for thought for the government, the public, and the private sectors. Okay, as well as said, we hope that this forum serves as a platform, on which we can all deliberate on these important issues, and hopefully this can be the beginning, okay, of this long process, and the government and the public can work together to solve these challenging population policy problems. So I would like to thank the speakers for the inspiring ideas, okay, and and I would like to thank you for attending this forum. Okay, so as what we said, we will put the presentation and video in our website, which is under construction. Okay, don't try to log in tonight; you won't find it. But in the near future, yes. So okay, thanks again for the speakers. Okay, thank you very much.